Now I'm going to preview the 1 seed Duke versus the 1 seed Houston men's basketball game, which will literally be played on April 5th at 7:49 p.m. Central Time, or a little bit later, depending on how the other game between Auburn and Florida goes here. So, as of right now, Duke is favored by 4.5. And Matchup Predictor does have Duke winning 53.9% of the time. As we all know, Duke is the best team in the ACC, and they're the only team in the ACC that made it out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament at 35-3 overall, 19-1 in the ACC, while Houston is 34-4 overall, 19-1 in the Big 12. And when you look at the winning streak for both of these teams, because they have not lost in a long time for either. I mean, Duke has won 15 straight games, while Houston has won. Let me check the amount of games, and I kind of memorize this stuff, y'all. So I apologize for looking down. They've won 17 straight games. So either way, a long winning streak is going to come to an end. And explain the history for both of those teams. And Houston has been to the national title game before, but it's been 1984, where they were the runner-up. Same thing goes for 83 as well. And this is the second one set in Final Four since 2021, when they were in the Final Four and they got destroyed by Baylor, the eventual national champs. So I'm just making a point. And Duke has not been to the national title game since 2015. So it's been a bit of time for both of these teams, as you can tell, but obviously longer for Houston, of course. So what are some players to keep an eye on? And I'm starting with the Duke side of things and then go to Houston. Then I'll give keys to the game for both. And obviously this game is played in San Antonio, Texas at the Alamo Dome. This is practically like a home game for Houston. Just being honest here. So obviously we all know Duke is going to have some one and dones, while Houston has a lot of seniors as well. And I'm not saying that Duke doesn't have a lot of seniors either, but the best guys are one and dones, or the better guys are. Like starting with Cooper Flagg, of course. Number 2, 6 foot 9 inch, 205 pound forward. That's a freshman. 18.9 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game, 2.1 turnovers per game, 1.3 blocks per game, 1.4 steals per game, 1.9 fouls per game, 37.4% on threes on 31 attempts, 83.4% on free throws on 205 attempts. And there's obviously Con Canuple, which he's another one and done. Number 7, 6 foot 7 inch, 217 pound guard. That's a freshman. 14.4 points per game, 3.9 rebounds per game, 2.8 assists per game, 1.4 turnovers per game, 1 steal per game, 2.2 fouls per game, 40.1% on threes on 202 attempts, 91.2% on free throws on 125 attempts. And there's Tyrese Proctor, and he's not like a one and done type. He might be even just a second round pick, and he might even come back a year from now, for all we know. Number 5, 6 foot 6 inch, 183 pound guard. That's a junior. 12.5 points per game, 3.1 assists per game, 3.1 rebounds per game, 2.2 assists per game, 1.1 turnovers per game, 0.8 blocks per game, 1.9 fouls per game, 41.2% on threes on 260 attempts, 68.6% on free throws on 70 attempts. And there's Zion James, which he is a senior, so he's done no matter what. Number 14, 6 foot 6 inch, 220 pound guard. That's a senior. 8.7 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, 1.2 blocks per game, 0.8 steals per game, 2.1 fouls per game, 41.7% on free throws. On threes on 72 attempts, 81% on free throws on exactly 100 attempts. And it's Kama Maliak, number 9, 7 foot 2 inch, 250 pound center. That's a freshman. He's another one and done. 8.7 points per game, 6.8 rebounds per game, 0.8 turns per game, 1.3 blocks per game, 2 fouls per game, 25% on threes, but that's on 16 attempts. Granted, 76.4% on free throws on 72 attempts. And as Isaiah Evans, he's a potential one and done. Potential. But even if he comes back, he's going to only stick around for one more year, in my opinion. That's just me, though. Number 3, 6'6", 175-pound guard. That's a freshman. 7 points per game. 1 foul per game. 41.6% on threes on 449 attempts. 81.3% on free throws on 32 attempts. There's Caleb Foster. Number 1, a 6'5", 202-pound guard. That's a sophomore. 5.1 points per game. 0.9 turnovers per game, 0.6 steals per game, 1.1 fouls per game, 34.2% on threes on 73 attempts, 2/3 on free throws, but that's on 33 attempts, albeit. And there's Mason Gillis, number 18, 6'6", 225-pound forward. That's a senior, 4.2 points per game, 2.6 rebounds per game, 1.3 fouls per game, 34.4% on threes on 96 attempts, 82.6% on free throws on 23 attempts. There's Patrick Namba II, number 21, a 6'11", 250-pound center. That's a freshman, 4 points per game, 2.8 rebounds per game, 6 blocks per game, 1.7 fouls per game, 0 for 1 on threes, 72.7% on free throws on 33 attempts. And I'm going to go over like a few more guys here. I'm not going to go every single guy on the roster. Oh no, for both these teams, I'm definitely not going to do that. And then there's Malik Brown, and he just came back recently from injury, as we all know. Number 6, 6'9", 222-pound forward. That's a junior. 2.4 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, 0.9 turnovers per game, 1.2 steals per game, 1.7 fouls per game, 4 for 12 on threes. 37.5% on free throws, but that's on 16 attempts. And I'm going to just double check real fast on one more player. Yeah, I'm not going to go over that guy. Now I'm going to go for Houston side of things. And obviously the first guy I'm going to mention, I am familiar with. It is LJ Cryer. Number 4, 6'1", 200-pound guard. It's a senior. 15.4 points per game, 2.3 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, 1 turnover per game, 0.9 steals per game, 1.3 fouls per game, 41.9% on threes on 270 attempts, 91.6% on free throws on 95 attempts. There's Emmanuel Sharp. And before I go forward here, Houston does not have guys above 6'9". Yet they're really good defensively and on the glass. I'm just saying. Because it's just the truth. Okay, Emmanuel Sharp is number 21. 6'3", 210-pound guard. That's a junior. 12.7 points per game. 3 rebounds per game. 0.8 turnovers per game. 1.4 steals per game. 2.4 fouls per game. 41.5% on threes on 200 attempts. 87.6% on free throws on 113 attempts. There's Miles Uzan. Number 7, a 6'4", 109-pound guard. That's a junior. 11.6 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, 4.4 assists per game, 1.4 turnovers per game, 0.9 steals per game, 1.9 fouls per game, 44.5% on threes on 137 attempts, 77.6% on free throws on 58 attempts. And it's Jerwan Roberts, and he seems like he's been there forever. And number 13. 6'8", 235-pound forward. That's a senior. 10.7 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 1.6 turnovers per game, 0.7 blocks per game, 1 steal per game, 1.9 fouls per game, 62.5% on free throws on 96 attempts. There's Terrence Arsenault, number 23, a 6'6", 205-pound guard. That's a sophomore. 6.8 points per game, 2.7 rebounds per game, 0.7 turnovers per game, 0.9 steals per game, 1.2 fouls per game, 34.6% on threes on 81 attempts, 72.9% on free throws on 48 attempts. And this Malik Wilson. And one thing to mention, he Got hurt in that Purdue game, but he played in the last game against Tennessee. I mean, 24 minutes. So number 8, 6'3" 275-pound guard. It's a soft. I mean, that's a senior. 5.6 points per game, 4.1 rebounds per game, 0.8 turnovers per game, 1.2 steals per game, 1.4 fouls per game, 36.1% on threes on 36 attempts, 71% on free throws on 31 attempts. Okay. The next guy I'm definitely going to mention is Joseph Tugler, a 6'8" 230-pound forward. That's a sophomore. It's 5.5 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, 0.9 turnovers per game, 1.9 blocks per game, 0.9 steals per game, 3 fouls per game, 27.3% on threes on 11 attempts, 54% on free throws on 63 attempts. This is Javier Harris. And he's really the last guy I'm going to really mention, number 5. 6'8", 235-pound, 35-pound forward. That's a senior, 5.1 points per game, 4.4 rebounds per game, 0.9 turnovers per game, 0.9 blocks per game, 2.1 fouls per game, 0 for 1 on threes, 71.2% on free throws on 66 attempts. Now, I'm only saying that because when you look down the list, it's really just Mercy Miller, Ramon Walker Jr. He's been out with an injury. Cordelius Jefferson, they hardly play. Same thing goes for Cedric Ladd. So, obviously, across the board, whatever you did right last game, you got to bring in this game. Whatever you did wrong last game, you got to correct in this game. Because if you don't, you will lose, potentially. And do this for the seniors. Do this for the one-and-done types. Or the two-and-done types. For the NBA draft. Or even three-and-done. But you get the whole picture here. You got to lay it out all out there. And have no regrets going into this game. You got to hustle the other team. You got to adjust the officiating. And I know the officiating may be questionable, but you got to be the more mentally tougher team, and hopefully it's good officiating. You got to make adjustments on the fly, both offensively and defensively. You got to be good in late game situations. And both of these teams are really good defensively when you look at the numbers. But Houston is really a good defensive team. Yet Duke has some more offense, but it's really a good battle here. And I know Houston has offense too, but I think Duke is a little bit better, but not by a ton. Obviously, across the board, too, you can't be intimidated by the other team. You got to try to take away the opposing fans from cheering this game by making plays to win while getting your fans involved. I mean, that does make a difference. On defense, obviously, another thing across the board, you got to limit your foul trouble while getting them in foul trouble, especially to the better players on the team. Obviously, on defense, you got to contain the best players as much as possible. You got to contain the shooters, contain the slashers. Don't let them live at the free throw line. You got to limit the second chance points. You got to get, in order to limit the second chance points, you got to get some defensive boards. You got to create turnovers. You got to limit the points of, transition points. Of course, points in the paint as well. I mean, just saying. And now, obviously on offense, and sometimes your best offense comes from your defense, so you got to get some points off turnovers. You got to get some transition points. You got to get some points in the paint. You got to have good shot selection. You got to take care of the ball because you do not want a live ball turnover to run out to like a wide open dunk or wide open three-pointer. And you got to make your free throws count because it does make a difference whether if you make free throws or not in a game like this. Because if you don't make your free throws and you lose, you'll go like, oh my goodness, we really let that slip away. If we would have shot better from the free throw line, we would have won this game or tie it. And don't let the moment get too big for you. I'm just saying. And the crazy thing is, Juwan Roberts and LJ Cryer were freshmen when both Baylor and Houston were in the Final Four last time. And now, well, that moment helped them. And I know LJ Cryer didn't play a lot in that Final Four game, but at least he has a little experience. Same thing goes for Jawan Roberts. I don't know how much he played. I don't recall. But you could look at the box score. But experience does matter. And like I said, you got to lay it out there on the line. For not only for your seniors, but your one and dones. And who knows what the transfer portal these days, but you get the whole point. So anyways, if you like this content, hit the like and subscribe button. See you guys later on the road. 800 subscribers course. Ultimate goal is 1,000 more. Someone want this course like video, comment video really helps YouTube algorithms. More people see us, sharing the video does help as well. So more people could watch. And if you're watching and not subscribed, hit subscribe button. It's free notification bell as well. And I do expect both of these teams after the season ends here to have to reload their roster. I mean, look at the amount of one and done's going to be gone for Duke and / seniors. And look at the amount of seniors that Houston will lose. Potentially. And it's not including transfer portal for both of these teams here. Granted, I know. But it's just telling the truth.